Welcome to the deep dive. We're opening today right in the middle of what should have been a moment of, well, pure ceremony. It's Inauguration Day for President Kerry Kilcannon. The oath's done, the big address is over, things seem to be settling in.
But then, boom, the real power shift happens instantly. It's 12:31 p.m., right there on the inaugural platform. Chief Justice Bannon collapses.
Well, Chief Justice.
Yeah, the deeply conservative anchor of the Supreme Court suffers a massive stroke, fatal, right after Kilcannon finishes speaking. Just gone.
Wow. Talk about a pivot point. And our source material notes Bannon had, shall we say, strong negative opinions about the new president.
Oh, absolutely. He apparently told people Kilcannon was, and I'm quoting here, ruthless, intemperate, and qualified only to ruin the court.
Okay, so zero love lost there. That really sets the stage, doesn't it?
It tells you everything. Bannon's death isn't just a vacancy. It's Kilcannon's golden opportunity to potentially flip the court's ideology on day one. It basically guaranteed a political war, not some gentle confirmation process.
And that's our mission for this deep dive, unpacking that war. We're looking at the nomination of the first woman ever put forward for Chief Justice, the incredibly intense fight she faced, and how this really emotional, televised abortion case became a kind of unexpected weapon.
A legal and political weapon, yeah.
So let's talk about the nominee Kilcannon picks. Judge Caroline Clark Masters. What's her profile?
Well, on paper, she's stellar.
Oh.
Highly respected federal appellate judge, known for integrity, sharp intellect. Started out as a public defender, actually. Liberal-leaning, definitely, but with a reputation that the administration hoped would make her hard to oppose.
But Washington always finds a way, right? There was a vulnerability.
A big one. A personal secret. Years back, she'd had a daughter, Brett Allen, whom she gave up for adoption.
Okay.
And the problem was, during earlier confirmation hearings for lower courts, she had stated under oath that she had no children.
Ah. So she argued it was the literal truth, but that's tricky territory in a confirmation.
Extremely tricky. That omission, that literal truth, becomes a political time bomb. It gives opponents the hook they need to paint her as, unethical, maybe deceptive, regardless of her actual judicial record.
Enter the opposition, Senate Majority Leader Macdonald Gage.
Exactly. Gage is the gatekeeper here, and he has his lines in the sand. No judicial activists, no liberals on crime, no red hots for abortion. He sees Masters, maybe suspects her liberalism, sees her single status, her sort of outsider image, and he's ready to fight.
But why her specifically? I mean, why go all out against his first nominee? Couldn't he wait for someone potentially more extreme later?
That's a great question. And the sources suggest it wasn't just about ideology. It was also about, well, money, political finance.
Really? How so?
Gage's political machine.
Yeah.
It's deeply connected to a lobbyist named Mace Taylor. Taylor funnels huge amounts of cash from groups like the gun lobby and, significantly for this story, the Christian Commitment.
So you're saying this whole confirmation battle is partly a proxy fight over campaign finance influence?
That seems to be a major undercurrent, yes. Masters was likely seen as someone who might eventually rule against the status quo on campaign finance, challenging the power of these big lobbying groups. Defeating her wasn't just about abortion or crime. It was about protecting Gage's and Taylor's whole power base. It's about the ecosystem of power and money in D.C.
Okay, so Gage is primed. He thinks he has an ethical angle with Masters' secret daughter. And then the system hands him what looks like the perfect legal weapon. This parallel crisis erupts.
Right. The case of Mary Ann Tierney versus Barton Cutler, Attorney General, in this case, it's explosive. Tailor-made for national controversy.
Big as a detail.
Mary Ann Tierney is 15 years old. She's 5.5 months pregnant. And she's seeking a late-term abortion.
Okay.
And the medical details are stark. The fetus is hydrocephalic. The description is almost certain to have no brain. The head size is compared to a cantaloupe or soccer ball. Just devastating facts.
And the law involved.
The Federal Protection of Life Act. It bans abortions after viability, unless the procedure is necessary to save the mother's life or protect her physical health.
But there's another layer here, a really difficult one involving her family.
A huge layer. Mary Ann's parents, Professor Martin Tierney and his wife, are actually prominent pro-life activists. They intervene in the case against their own daughter.
Wow. On behalf of the fetus?
On behalf of the fetus, who they refer to as their grandson, they're associated with the Christian Commitment, Gage's ally, remember. Their argument is straightforward. Abortion is murder. Adoption is the only option, even for a fetus with no chance of survival outside the womb.
And this whole thing plays out in public.
Televised. The trial is broadcast. turning this family's private tragedy into, as Professor Tierney himself apparently called it, a national morality play.
So what's the core legal argument from Mary Ann's side? Her lawyer is Sarah Dash, right?
Yes, Sarah Dash. Her argument is constitutional. She says the Protection of Life Act's health exception is too narrow. It has to include mental health. I mean, forcing a teenager to carry a dying child to term.
Makes sense.
But critically, Dash also focuses on physical health. The specific procedure Mary Ann would need at this late stage is a classical C-section, and that procedure carries a known, measurable risk of future infertility.
A risk to her future ability to have children. Do they quantify that risk?
The source says it was calculated as less than 1 in 40.
Okay, statistically small, maybe, but...
But for a 15-year-old girl, Dash argues that forcing her to take any measurable risk to her future reproductive health, her procreative health, for a fetus that cannot survive, violates her rights under existing precedents like Roe and Casey. That's the constitutional hook.
And the other side, the Tierneys and the government.
They reject that completely. They argue mental health doesn't count here, and neither does this, relatively small risk of infertility. For them, it's about the sanctity of what they define as viable life, period. They also attack the abortion procedure itself, calling it distasteful, dangerous, trying to shift the focus.
Trying to win in the court of public opinion, essentially.
Absolutely. Put Mary Ann, her lawyer, her doctor, Dr. Flom, under this intense, uncomfortable spotlight.
Okay, so these two massive conflicts, Masters' nomination and Tierney's case, are happening at the same time. How do they collide?
It happens in the courts. Initially, a lower court panel actually upholds the Protection of Life Act. Things look bad for Mary Ann.
But it doesn't end there.
No. The full Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals agrees to rehear the case. It's called an en banc review.
Which means?
It means the whole court, all the judges on that circuit will hear it together. It signals the case is incredibly important. And guess who gets placed on that en banc panel?
Judge Caroline Masters.
Bingo. And she doesn't just participate. She writes the majority opinion.
And what does she rule?
She strikes down the Protection of Life Act. Her reasoning is incredibly precise, cutting right to that health argument.
Let's get that rationale clear. It seems critical.
It is. Masters writes, and this is the key line, no humane definition of physical health can exclude procreative health. Basically, forcing Mary Ann to undergo that C-section with its measurable risk of infertility for a fetus that was medically hopeless, that violated her constitutional right to health. She uses the specific facts to draw a clear line.
And the political world explodes.
Instantly, Gage pounces. He uses Masters' opinion as proof. She's a biased activist, demands new Senate hearings, claims she lied about her views.
And the attacks get personal, right?
Viciously personal. Gage starts trying to smear her reputation completely.
Huh?
He even brings up her professional connection to Sarah Dash, Mary Ann's lawyer, because Dash had once clerked for Masters. He suggests maybe Masters is a lesbian, unethical judge just throwing mud trying to see what sticks.
Wow. And then it gets even darker with this leak.
Yeah, this is where it just hits rock bottom. Information about Masters' adopted daughter, her past, starts getting leaked. And simultaneously, this outlet, the internet frontier, threatens to expose something deeply personal about a key Republican senator, Chad Palmer.
Oh, what's that?
That Palmer's own daughter, Kyle, had had an abortion years earlier, apparently complicated by substance abuse issues, a deeply painful, private matter.
And they were going to weaponize that. Just unbelievable cruelty.
Pure political hardball. Kilcannon's team actually finds out the leak, the one targeting Palmer, designed to force him to oppose Masters, came from Mace Taylor.
Gage's lobbyist ally.
The very same. It confirms this wasn't just about judicial philosophy. It was a political hit job aimed at destroying Masters and anyone who might support her, like Palmer.
And the consequence for Kyle Palmer.
It's tragic. Overwhelmed by her private trauma being dragged into the public square like this, Kyle Palmer dies in a car crash.
Oh my God.
And for Senator Palmer, that grief instantly morphs into this righteous fury. He knows his daughter's death was caused by, in his words, callous and immoral men using her pain to get at him politically.
That changes the entire equation in the Senate, doesn't it?
Completely. It shifts the narrative dramatically. Suddenly, it's less about Masters' qualifications and more about the sheer moral bankruptcy of the tactics being used against her. Palmer had maybe been wavering, caught between party loyalty and Gage, but now...
Now it's personal. It's about revenge.
Deeply personal revenge against Gage and Taylor.
So the final vote on Masters' confirmation, how does Palmer's transformation play out?
Well, he had apparently made some kind of deal with President Kilcannon earlier. He honors that, first by refusing to support Gage's attempt to filibuster the nomination.
Blocking the filibuster is key.
Crucial. But then comes the real drama. Palmer takes the Senate floor and delivers this absolutely searing speech. He doesn't hold back. He publicly accuses Gage of conspiring with Taylor, essentially blaming them for his daughter Kyle's death.
Yeah.
It shatters any remaining Republican unity against Masters.
What a moment. So the vote goes ahead.
It does. Under this intense cloud of tragedy and accusation, there's a bit more procedural drama. One senator, Kate Sharman, delays her vote, letting the dust settle. But ultimately, Caroline Masters is confirmed as Chief Justice. The vote is tight. 51-49.
And she's sworn in.
She is. And in a really poignant moment, her biological daughter, Brett Allen, the daughter she gave up for adoption, is there with her. A moment of maybe public reconciliation or healing.
What about the Tierney case? Does it just disappear?
Not quite. Mary Ann's abortion does proceed, secretly, away from the cameras. But Professor Tierney tries to appeal to the Supreme Court on behalf of the fetus.
And the newly configured court with Masters potentially recusing. What happens?
The Supreme Court declines to hear the appeal. It sounds anticlimactic, but the reason is pure legal procedure and kind of fascinating.
Explain that. Why wouldn't they take such a huge case?
Okay, so you need 4 justices to agree to hear a case that's called granting certiorari. Apparently, they had those 4 votes. Enough justices thought the case was important. But they also needed votes to grant a stay. A stay is in order to pause everything in this case, to pause the abortion until the court could hear the full arguments. And they didn't have enough votes for the stay. Some sources say only 4 voted for it.
Ah, so not a majority needed for a stay.
Exactly. Since they couldn't get the votes to stop the procedure, the abortion happened. And once the abortion happened, the legal question about that specific pregnancy became irrelevant, or moot, as lawyers say. The case was over because the central issue no longer existed. Procedure trumped the desire to hear the case.
Fascinating. Procedure dictating the outcome. And was there medical confirmation afterwards?
Yes. Dr. Flom, the performing physician, reported that the fetus's hydrocephalus was indeed hopeless. It would have died very shortly after birth, confirming that the decision, medically speaking, was sound.
And President Kilcannon, what's his final move in all this? Does he let Taylor and Gage off the hook?
Not quite. The source material suggests Kilcannon is ruthless, but strategically so. He has that FBI report naming Mace Taylor as the source of the leak that led to Kyle Palmer's death.
The smoking gun.
Pretty much. And Kilcannon decides to use it, not necessarily to prosecute immediately, but as leverage. The threat of pursuing criminal conspiracy charges against Taylor, and maybe even implicating Gage, gives Kilcannon enormous power to ensure their cooperation on his future agenda.
Wow. So he uses the fallout from this fight to consolidate power for the next fight.
That's the picture painted. It's pure DC power politics.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway from this deep dive, it feels like?
Well, like the law itself was almost secondary sometimes. I think that's a fair assessment. What this whole saga demonstrates really starkly is how in these high-stakes confirmation battles, things like judicial philosophy, qualifications, even constitutional law, can often get pushed aside by raw political power, by emotionally charged narratives, and by the truly devastating human cost of public scrutiny.
Yeah, we saw Kilcannon being both principled and utterly ruthless. We saw Masters, a figure of integrity, forced into a kind of deception that became a weapon against her, and Senator Palmer, his personal tragedy becoming this unexpected catalyst for political vengeance.
Exactly. The personal and the political became completely intertwined with devastating consequences.
The source material seems to conclude that Masters' actual ruling, the legal substance of it protecting Mary Ann Tierney's physical and procreative health, was correct, both constitutionally and medically.
Yes, the legal and medical facts seem to support her conclusion.
But then, when you look at how the system used Mary Ann, how it chewed up and spat out Kyle Palmer just for political gain, it leaves you with a really tough question, doesn't it? We pose this to you, the listener. When the process of testing the rule of law in Washington exacts such a brutal human price, can we really say that system is functioning justly? Something to think about.